Today on Inspired Money.
I was like, what the heck? That's like, are you buying your forever home now? Like, you don't even know where you're going to be in future. And so I think it was so great that through this process, as like Eric explained to me and us going through this process together, made me realize that, investment homes are an option. You don't have to buy a home just to live in there forever.
This is episode 170 with Silicon Valley techies who want to make $30,000 a month in passive income, Eric and Wanda. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Today we're talking to a young couple in their 20s from Silicon Valley. Wanda's currently an associate product marketing manager at Google, and Eric's an Android engineer on the Instagram Stories team. They both have great jobs, but here's why I wanted to bring them on the show today. As a couple, they're working together to generate what they call 30K by 30, meaning that they've set a goal of generating $30,000 per month by the year 2030 in alternate income streams, mostly passive. This started because 2 months ago, they decided to do a weekend life planning retreat to understand where they wanted to be 10 years from now. In this episode, you'll learn how to structure a life planning retreat like Wanda and Eric did. They clarified their priorities. They brainstormed all the ways they could start building out additional income streams. More importantly than setting big goals, Wanda and Eric implemented quickly. So you'll hear how just in the last 2 months, they bought a house, remodeled it specifically for Airbnb, and they made 2 times their mortgage payment in month 1. You'll also hear how they're living rent-free. Now let's get inspired with Eric and Wanda. Eric and Wanda, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having us on the show. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
My mom back in the day wanted to, teach me the value of working hard. So she actually incentivized me to do chores with this flag system. So there are 3 different flags and each flag represented 1 cent, 5 cents, and 10 cents. And if I did chores on a specific day, she would then put a flag on the calendar for that day. So then eventually I was looking forward to cashing out, but she told me, hey, you can't cash out till you hit $100. That's only 5 or 6 at the time. So I didn't really have a good sense of how long it would take to get there. I ended up taking 4 or 5 years to get there before I finally cashed out. But once I did get my $100, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, that's hilarious. The flag system sounds very comprehensive and the pay scale, not very good.
Not very good, no.
Not in his favor.
Yes, that's why it took so long. So you guys are in Silicon Valley. I imagine your parents are pretty happy with your education and your jobs. Tell us about what you do.
So I am an associate product marketing manager at Google. Been working there for a bit over 2 years.
Yeah, and I'm currently at Instagram. I'm an Android engineer and I work on the Instagram Stories team. So if you see any of those polls and different stickers that you play around with on Instagram, that's my team and me working on it.
Oh, that's cool. So did you guys grow up in California or was moving there part of chasing the Silicon Valley dream?
I grew up in California, went to school at UCLA, so just stayed in California. But Eric did not.
Yeah, I had a pretty different experience. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, so it's a much smaller place than Silicon Valley. I think the goal and the dream was always to be at the center of entrepreneurship. So San Francisco, Silicon Valley, that was the place to be. So it was always one of my long-standing dreams to get out here. So it was awesome to be able to do that after college.
The companies that you guys work at seem like dream jobs for a lot of people. What is it like, your daily routine? Is it super long hours?
Well, I think these days it's very different from what it was prior to COVID, of course.
Yeah.
But pre-COVID, since we lived in the city in SF, and my work was in Mountain View, so it is a bit of a commute. To others, it seems like it's super long. It takes at least an hour and a half one way. But Google's great with shuttles. So I go wake up early in the morning, hop on a shuttle, listen to podcasts, listen to music, or just take a nap on the way to work. And then at work, we're treated with good foods. The rumors are true. There's free smoothies, free food, free snacks everywhere, which was really awesome.
Yeah, and then I think at Instagram, like very similar to Google with like the different perks in terms of like the day-to-day work, at least as an engineer, I had a pretty consistent, like 9 to 5, 9 to 6. So pretty stable there. I didn't ever have any crazy working hours, but it's definitely like, I would say it's still a pretty high pressure place where a lot of people are overperformers. So everyone needs to really hustle to like stand out in the pack.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so you guys did something that seemed really significant in your life. You guys took a weekend for a life planning retreat. What is that?
Yeah, so just kind of like talking about big tech again and with like all the great perks, it is an awesome place to be. But Wanda and I came to the realization that that's not the lifestyle that we're necessarily looking for. So when we were thinking about 10 years from now, we didn't still want to be in big tech. So we just decided, hey, maybe we could take some time to actually outline where we want to be in 10 years. And thus came about this weekend retreat that we planned. Wanda can talk a little bit more on that too.
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up with my mom being a stay-at-home mom, and I really value that. Her always being there for me. I have very fond memories of us just watching movies and just doing activities together. And so that's something I really want to strive for in the future. For when the time comes and I'm ready to have kids, when I have a kid, I can spend as much time with that child as I want. And so even though, Google is great on giving all these perks, or big tech is great in doing that, I think what I really want in the future is just to have that freedom of time to spend with my family and with my kid. I think with that, it sounded like our lifestyle, it needed to have like a bigger change, like for the future. Like, so we wanted to take a step and go on this retreat to see how do we get there in the future and what we want to do.
Was there a catalyst that made the two of you decide we need to have a retreat?
Yeah, I think there's a few. Well, once being cooped up in a tiny 1-bedroom city apartment isn't the best, right? During COVID times. But also now that everything's work from home, I've been seeing a lot of challenges with, especially, a lot of other Googlers who are parents and have kids. I do see, there's a lot of prioritization involved. And I think that's just true for any 9-to-5 job. I think that really shed some light on COVID makes you realize that your time is so precious. And so how do you want to best spend our time?
Yeah, and I'd be lying to you, Andy, if there wasn't this very unique catalyst that we had, which was we had black mold in our 1-bedroom apartment, which also served as like a time for us to realize, hey, like in this tiny space, we're stuck with this black mold and we have to go somewhere else. So for that week that we decided to go somewhere else, we're like, okay, we've been talking about doing this life retreat for a while. We have this space now where we're somewhere else, have these whiteboards to work with. Why don't we do it now? So that was kind of like a random coincidence with timing.
Yeah.
We'd already been talking about doing this retreat for a while, but that was like the final kicker for us to do it that week.
Oh my gosh, you guys have a silver lining from black mold.
Right.
So tell us, what did it look like? You guys decided to do this retreat and this weekend of brainstorming and life planning. To me, the word life planning seems scary. Was that scary to you?
Definitely. I want to say, especially because Wanda and I, we're currently, we're not married. So when we started planning this out, it's like, hey, if we're having these goals in mind 10 years from now, we also have to like plan to the fact, like right now our relationship isn't married. So it's definitely scary. And I think to all the listeners out there who are like thinking about maybe doing something similar with their significant other, yeah, it's like, it's even hard to have that first conversation of like, hey, 10 years from now, like, where do you want to be? Because I think there's, potentially a chance that people don't see themselves together 10 years from now, right? So for us, I think it was more about individually at that life retreat, planning out what our ideal lifestyle looks like and seeing the overlaps that there were with each other and seeing how that would all mesh together. Fortunately for us, a lot of the goals that we have and a lot of the lifestyles that we want to accomplish, we did overlap. So I think that worked out pretty well for us.
And what did this process look like? Because I saw a picture of your whiteboard, which looked like a work of art. But explain to the listeners who can't see that, what did this process look like?
Yeah, it was super fun, actually. The reason why it looks like a work of art is because I was telling Eric, let's make this as fun as possible. Let's just go all out, dream big, draw it out. We can make a mood board later if you want, just to go big here so we can really imagine the future. So I'm pretty sure we wrote like steps on how we're outlining their retreat. The first one, I remember I wrote down colorize your dream life, which is how do we best describe what we want to see ourselves doing in the future? What is that schedule that we want to see? Let's put as much detail as possible so we have a clear, crisp goal there.
Yeah, and to all the listeners out there as well, the whiteboard that Andy is referring to is when we decided to start colorizing, we had 2 columns, one for Wanda's colorized life, one for mine. And then in the middle, we had these small cartoon characters holding hands. I'm guessing the one that was the taller one was me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, that's how we got started.
So is this an exercise that you recommend that people do either individually or as a couple? Because I think that probably most 20-somethings don't take the time to do this.
The best thing that came out of this retreat for us was just having alignment on what we wanted to do. I think it is very valuable to have an understanding of what your significant other is also thinking of doing, wants to accomplish, because you want to make sure that you're enabling them to be the best person they want to be as well, right? So I do think it's an important exercise that a lot of couples could try out. That being said, I can also understand why initiating that conversation could be very scary. So like figuring out the right time to have that conversation, I think is another thing that's important to be wary of.
Yeah. And I think as individually too, it's just super, I really like to introspect and create goals because I just want to figure out, how, I know I can't plan life and life works in weird ways, but it feels good to me to have this goal in mind so I can know I'm actively working towards something and something that I can hopefully achieve in the future and have that in my life.
How did you guys communicate before this? I'm curious if this retreat kind of elevated your communication to a new level.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I think the shift happened where because we didn't fully talk about what is our future goal and how it connects together and what is the best way to get there prior to this retreat. That was like the huge changing moment feels like we went from just being boyfriend, girlfriend to being partners in how we want to achieve our life goals, which is really impactful to have someone be your buddy to make sure. I think they call it accountability buddy. It's similar to here, right? We're now each other's accountability buddies where we're helping each other and elevating each other. It's just being our cheerleaders for each other to help us achieve our life goals.
Was there a sense of relief that you saw as Wanda had her column and Eric had his, that you started seeing an alignment happening?
Yeah, I think just like about our relationship a little bit from the start, we've set like very high expectations for each other. I think we went into it, very committed from the start. In terms of like the goals, I think we always had like this fuzzy sense that, hey, family is important and here are the things we want to accomplish. What the retreat was very helpful for was setting concrete milestones and setting concrete actionable things that we could do to actually get there. So I think before maybe we were wandering a little bit and trying to figure out where we should go. But the retreat really helped create this North Star that we could really strive for.
And what are the high level goals that you defined?
Yeah. So after we did that colorize your dream life exercise where we just had so much fun and excitement, afterwards we started figuring out, okay, now we have this goal. We've outlined this dream life with a hot tub in the backyard. Eric wanted a tennis court in the backyard. Like, all right, this is our dream goal to achieve. how do we get there? And I think we did a lot of work on, let's put a dollar amount to this. What is that dollar amount that can get us this life? And then let's work back first from that. What is that dollar amount per month that we want to achieve? How do we get there? And then we did that brainstorm exercise of, here are some different income streams that we've just heard from other people, read online. Let's plot them all out, map them all out, and see which ones we're more interested in.
Yeah. And then to build on top of that, there were two big pillars that came of that conversation as well. One was the financial flexibility that we could build for ourselves. And then two was that family is number one. So what we realized is the goal, it's not to get out of the 9 to 5 or to stop working per se. It's more to have flexibility with work so that we don't have to sacrifice or trade off big moments with family.
Did your definitions of wealth and happiness, did that change before and after this exercise?
I think the way that we currently view wealth and happiness is probably very similar. I think the idea of happiness comes down to, like the relationships that you have with people. And for us, it was family as well. In terms of wealth, I think the big changing point there is trading off time for money is not the way to acquire a lot of wealth. And I think you can see this concept in a lot of different books too, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where we're now thinking more about asset building and how we can create these passive streams of income. And that's how we got to this 30K by 2030 kind of goal of ours.
Okay, so define that for us.
Yes. So as Wanda mentioned earlier, we had some costs that we worked back from to get to this number. So this was things like healthcare, childcare, mortgage payments, living expenses, etc. After outlining all of those in our dream life, we recognize that, hey, if we can get roughly 350K per year, that should be able to cover all of the things that we want to do. So then we created this catchier tagline, 30K by 2030, because we wanted to give ourselves 10 years to build out these income streams. And then by then, we should be able to get 30K per month. Our stretch goal is to every year add 3K of passive income to our income streams until eventually by 2030, we're hitting 30K per month.
So is this a big change in mentality? Because this is, instead of going to work and trading your time and your hours for a paycheck, you're trying to figure out this passive income stream that can scale, right?
It's a huge change in mentality, honestly. I think, especially, coming from a fairly traditional Asian household, what I learned my whole life was, you go to college, you get a good job, you work that good job for your life, and then you retire. And I think that that's essentially the path that I lived so far. And I think Wanda would say the same. Mm-hmm. Recognizing that that's not the only path was very cathartic, I want to say, for both of us. And it feels like now with work, we still strive to be the best that we can at Instagram and Google, but there is a little bit less pressure because we know that there's more beyond just these careers that we're building up. And it feels good to have these side projects that we're building up as well.
For me, it's been super liberating where now we're diversifying income stream. It's not just this is the one thing that feeds you and pays your bills. Now we have these other things that we can explore and continue to grow out. So it's very liberating, the fact that now my whole salary isn't just completely dependent on Google. And if Google crashes, then I'm like, I don't have a job at all.
So you're gaining flexibility. Before we dig into the different potential revenue streams and how that was part of your brainstorming process, what was the reaction of your friends and family of the retreat and then the outcome of the retreat?
Friends were generally very receptive of the idea. In terms of family, I think my parents were also very supportive of the idea, but without any, execution yet. They definitely were a little skeptical of, hey, is this actually possible? Because the journeys that they'd taken to date had been the more traditional, get a 9 to 5 and work for your whole life kind of thing. So while they were supportive, I think there was definitely still, more that needed to be done to show them that this was actually possible. In terms of friends, like Wanda mentioned, yeah, I think it was awesome that we actually inspired some of our other couple friends and just some of our single friends as well to take some time to go out and really introspect and brainstorm on their own life goals. So that was definitely a very nice thing to see, that people were more supportive than they were skeptical.
Yeah. And I think it's just really hard to take time out of anyone's life just to really think about and taking a step back, because we're also caught up into a lot of the day-to-day activities. It's like, I think it's a good reminder, like for me, during the retreat, and just like to build up a habit of just thinking about things on a higher level.
Did you guys have some sort of outline so that going into this, you knew what you wanted to cover, or did you just figure it out on your own?
We got some snacks. I think that was what we figured out. Get some snacks and drinks, and let's just go for it and figure it out.
Yeah. You know, those like late night college sessions that you have with your friends where you're just kind of sitting and you're talking about all these random ideas that come to your mind. Yeah, honestly reminded me of that.
Yes.
Where we were in this Airbnb. We had a bunch of unhealthy snacks, which I don't know if that helped our mental function, but
hot Cheetos.
Oh, that helped. That helped a lot.
Yeah, like it just felt like there was a lot of inspired energy. And as we were inspired, we came up with more ideas of things that we wanted to talk about on topics that we wanted to go through. So I feel like it was one of those things where once the conversation started, the actual topics kind of just snowballed forward.
Yeah. And it's also just a really fun and exciting topic, right? Like, what do you want to do in the future? What is that dream goal you have? And you can imagine anything, which is why it was just so exciting. You know, our eyes lit up, just riffing off of each other, drawing cartoons on the whiteboard. It was so great.
It does sound fun. It sounds like you guys have the potential to start a movement. Certainly you have with some of your friends. As you came out with like family's number one, we want the flexibility and choice in the future. Then what? Is that a new whiteboard?
Yeah, so this one we actually went away from the whiteboard and we went the sticky note route. So what we did on this board is we mapped out initial investment versus return. And then we also mapped out like monetary risk versus time before return. So on this board, we started listing out sticky notes and putting it on to say like, hey, you know, like starting a YouTube channel, that's not really going to be a monetary investment on our side. But that is going to take a lot of time to scale up, to get things going, to get initial viewership. So maybe that's not the best path to go forward right now. On the flip side of things, we could have bought a laundromat, which is a ton of initial capital, but in the right places, it's like a very steady stream of income. So Wanda and I were thinking, hey, maybe long term, when we do have a bit more capital to work with, that's the route to go. And then we saw some things in the middle, which were around real estate. And that's actually the path that we decided to go forward with to start off.
Coming up, how Eric and Wanda brainstormed alternative ways to generate income, setting up a house to rent on Airbnb, and more ways to diversify income. All that and more right after this short break. The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/170. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Eric and Wanda and all other things mentioned in this episode. If you're listening to this before December 3rd, 2020, I want to invite you to a special live recording of Inspired Money episode 171 with Guy Kawasaki. That's on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. If you don't know Guy, he's chief evangelist of Canva, was chief evangelist of Apple, and he's brand ambassador of Mercedes. He's author of 15 books and a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. We're going to talk about all kinds of things with Guy. I'm really looking forward to asking him about how his book, The Art of the Start 2.0, the time-tested, battle-hardened guide for anyone starting anything, might be especially applicable right now during this pandemic, because so many people are looking to reinvent themselves by starting something new. Go to inspiredmoney.fm/guy, that's GUY, to reserve your spot right now for this live recording. It's pay as you wish with a suggested donation of $10. Proceeds go to Halavai, a 501c3 nonprofit that I'm involved in. This event is entitled Miso Soup for the Soul with Guy Kawasaki, which was nearly the title of his book, Wise Guy. And it's part of the Mauliola Virtual Gatherings, a series of diverse programming to help and entertain people during the pandemic. The audio of the interview with Guy is going to be published as Inspired Money episode 171 on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. Again, if you want to watch the live recording, go to inspiredmoney.fm/Guy. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. If you need financial planning or need help with your investments, contact me at inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. This week we have another Inspired Money flashback to episode 27, where Eric and Wanda are in their 20s. Episode 27 featured Tim and Amy Rutherford. They happily retired in their 40s by spending less. This might be a nice complimentary episode to listen to because you'll hear how another couple defines wealth and happiness in a different way. Let's go back in time.
The thing that we realized over the course of going through our exercise of downsizing is that how much you spend is a lot more important than how much you make or pretty much anything in the financial equation. So if you can reduce your spending and have a life that's built around spending $20,000 or $30,000 a year, that's
or
a lot.
Even less than you're spending now.
Or
it
even
doesn't
less.
have to be $20,000 a year.
That's exactly right. It can be whatever it is. That's not where we are, by the way. But if you can find a way to reduce your spending, that's going to get you a lot further down the path to freedom.
Check out episode 27 at inspiredmoney.fm/027 or search for Inspired Money, Tim and Amy Rutherford in your podcast app. Inspired Money Maker, what are you doing to inspire and make an impact? Email me at inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. Let me know what you like about the podcast and what you're doing to make a bigger impact with your money. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. I've seen both the whiteboard and the sticky notes. I'll share those photos in the show notes. How many sticky notes did you have? Like, how many options?
So I am a huge sticky note person. I carry sticky notes everywhere I go. I think instead of a notebook, I use sticky notes. So we had a lot of them to just play around with, and we went all out. It was just what we've heard, what we've searched online. Put Googles on the side and doing some deep dives. But yeah, we just let our imagination run wild. And I think that's also where we utilize the group, because after we posted on that, we did ask for, does anyone else have any ideas to add to this? Because there's just so many people who have already explored a lot of things and just know more than us. And we got a lot of good ideas there. So I think the laundromat that you mentioned was from a comment of that post.
And for people that don't know, the group is Asian Hustle Network, which is this group of 60 or 70,000 people now, just sharing about the different things that they work on, the different side hustles that they have. I think so. In that screenshot, I don't remember exactly, but I want to say there were maybe 20-ish ideas that we put on there. Those weren't even the ideas in total. We had a bigger list of total ideas. Those are the ones that made the final chopping block and actually got onto the board.
Any websites or books that helped you through this process?
Yes, it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that was a big one for just setting up the mindset to start exploring in this direction. And then aside from that, it was a lot of different YouTube channels and YouTube videos. So I watched a lot of Meet Kevin, Graham Stephan, and then also Charlie Chang.
Cool. I'm impressed not only that you guys went through this planning process, but your implementation. In just 2.5 months, you've already accomplished big things that many people, some of them don't even do in a lifetime.
Oh, man. Yeah. And this last 2.5 months has probably been the most exhausting time period that Wanda and I have been through. Just to give you some reference, last week, Thursday, at some point, both of us were just kind of sitting on a couch and we're just so out of energy. We don't want to even turn the TV on right now. So I think even though the 2.5 months was great, it definitely grinded us down where now we're okay, we need to take a step back and really relax for maybe a month or so.
Well, do you know what I think happened? I think we were just so adrenaline pumped from that retreat that we just channeled that motivation of like, let's sprint, let's just go for it, let's do it. But in hindsight, I think I would have, taken the more long-term approach and slowed it down a bit, added some more breaks as we went through this process. But it was a good use of our energy.
Well, thank goodness you are human.
Yeah, we are human indeed.
Tell the Inspired Money listener what you've achieved in just 2.5 months.
Yeah, so we bought a house. That was a crazy month. Anyone who hasn't gone through the escrow process, good luck when you get there. After buying the house, we spent a month designing and remodeling the place to get it ready for Airbnb. So actually just taking a step back real quick, the reason why we decided to go the real estate path is because in San Francisco, our highest expense was rent. That was making up roughly 60% of our monthly expenses. So Wanda and I were like, is there a way for us to completely eliminate that expense? And people commonly talk about house hacking, but house hacking is much more difficult in California because of just very expensive real estate and not being able to find renters that can cover the cost of your mortgage. So we ended up landing on this path of house hacking with Airbnb. So the way it works is we found a place that has a guest house in the back, and then we Airbnb out the main house. So going back to the timeline real quick, after the month of furnishing and remodeling the house, we opened up for Airbnb November 1st, which was exactly 2 months after the retreat, which is really crazy. Like we look back at it and we're just like, holy shit.
Yeah, and not even 3 weeks since we moved into this house.
True.
Where we furnished everything, built all the furniture, painted the walls, fixed the sink. It was a lot.
Yeah, we learned to be plumbers during this experience. That was crazy.
When did you guys sleep?
What is sleep, Andy?
Because you were working, right? I mean, even though you were working from home, but you were still working your jobs.
Yeah. So this was a lot of long weekends, very long weekends, and then late nights. Actually, to that point, I think we didn't space out very well because a lot of the burnout probably came from not having just chill, relaxing time where we just, went on walks or played some games. Instead, it was this high intensity focus during the 9 to 5 work hour and then the 5 to 10 afterwards.
Yeah. We're also lucky that our jobs aren't physical labor, right? It's more of mentally, you're thinking through a lot of problems. And then so it's like, all right, 5 o'clock's done. Now let's train our physical muscles. And now let's build some furniture and lift a couch.
So painting was like your soothing meditation.
Exactly.
Gotta get those paint fumes every once in a while.
And physical exercise. So the house kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Because you got out of your small 1-room apartment in San Francisco. I don't know. How did the economics work? Do you have like free housing now?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the first month on Airbnb has been like definitely exceeding our expectations. We do have free rent. That being said, we're in a tiny guest house that's like 250 square feet. So it's not the most enjoyable living, but I think in terms of like matching up to our goals, this is exactly what we were looking for. And we are making a little bit off the top as well, which is awesome.
And we get the big main house whenever it's not being occupied by an Airbnb guest. Of course, I'd rather stay in the guest house than have this as booked out and rented out. But a nice silver line to that is that we get to stay in the big house when there's not a guest.
Yes, when you have vacancies, that's like your vacation in the main house.
Exactly.
Yep.
But Airbnb, the bookings have been okay during the pandemic?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people tend to have this idea that Airbnb hasn't been doing as well. But aside from early COVID time, so like March and April when things first started shutting down, demand for travel has actually been pretty solid, if not better, at least for local travelers. So what we see now is instead of people traveling from out of state here, we'll have people traveling from urban areas like San Francisco out to the suburban areas like where we are.
That being said, Eric and I do take COVID pretty seriously. So we have cleaners coming in, like we make sure to sanitize everything just in case, because there's a lot of people or different people coming into the house.
I know that high tech has been very forward thinking in terms of having remote workers and keeping people working virtually for longer. If you guys had to commute, how long would that commute be?
If we were commuting from where we are now, we would have less sleep than during our crazy 2 months, because I think it would be 4.5 hours each way.
Well, it depends. If it's the area traffic, it's going to be more.
Oh, true. It could be like 5 hours of commute time.
But all jokes aside, we're staying here for the time being as we get to work from home. Once COVID is gone and away, then we'll explore other options on how we're going to have that flexibility, and maybe the company comes out with different policies then.
Got it. So what's the vision for 30 by 30? What's the next step?
I'm super pumped by how well this first house has gone. So I can see us continuing to expand in that direction. With like buying homes, the first house was completely in my name. So Wanda can leverage her first-time home buyer kind of perks as well when looking for another home. So I think we would be looking to continue investing in that direction and doing a couple more Airbnbs. Beyond that, I think we're starting to explore the social influencer side of things. So just looking into different kinds of brand influencers, understanding how people become successful on YouTube and Instagram. So we literally today just started our Instagram page. If you want to follow, it's a 30K by 30 journey. And we're hoping that we can grow that out as well, just to share out our journey and to hopefully inspire others as well.
That's awesome. Well, I'm super impressed. What haven't I asked you?
Oh, yeah. So, this is just kind of like an interesting piece of the story for when we were actually in the process of buying the home. So for us, we also want to be like pretty financially savvy if possible. So in the negotiation process, we were able to negotiate down to $0 of closing costs. And for the house itself, we only put down 5% down payment. So in total, I think we put in like 20K on the house, which if Airbnb goes well, we should be able to get that initial investment back in like a year or so. So it was a pretty hectic process in escrow while we were negotiating. But, we were able to talk to the seller's agents and eventually come to a point where they agreed to cover all of our closing costs, which is awesome because it meant that we didn't have to put too much capital into this house and we could still make the math and all the economics work out in our favor.
Yeah, I think that's the most surprising part of this process for me, because I'd always imagined, if we were to wind back, I had to always imagine buying a home is you're buying your long-term forever home, which was why before we did the retreat, Eric was like, yeah, maybe I'll buy a home. Maybe I'll explore this option. I was like, what the heck? That's like, are you buying your forever home now? Like, you don't even know where you're going to be in future. And so I think it was so great that through this process, as like Eric explained to me and us going through this process together, made me realize that, investment homes are an option. You don't have to buy a home just to live in there forever.
From some of the real estate investors that I've talked to, some of them do not advocate buying your primary home. And I think their rationale is that they want to save their cash for investments. They want to deploy their cash on investments that can generate a return.
Yeah, I think that does still make sense for a lot of people. If you are looking for the house hacking approach, though, I think it still does make a lot of sense to buy multifamily homes, or in our case, a place with an ADU. If you're just trying to find, like a 7% return per year, then sticking with like the S&P 500 is probably the way to go. But if you're trying, I think, to find like additional income streams that do take like time to build up, I still think real estate and buying, maybe not your like primary home, but buying like investment homes that you can turn into like cash flow generating assets, I think that's a very potentially successful way to go.
With this house, was it difficult to find a property with a guest house and a main house?
Yes, totally. 100%. I think that limits your options significantly. I think we got lucky stumbling across this place, and we liked the layout, the background of the backyard in the back. So yes, totally it takes luck, like everything in life.
Yeah, I will say also like Zillow, Redfin, all those sites, they don't have filters for additional units. So it really was just clicking through each of the units and seeing if there was an attached unit on them. So actually our search was supposed to be within an hour and a half of San Francisco. We were looking in places like Sacramento, Santa Rosa, that kind of area, that there was just nothing remotely close to our price point, which is why we had to expand our search to like the 4-hour radius.
Yeah, we also, we gave my 11-year-old sister a job in helping us find and click through homes to see if they have an additional unit in the back.
Oh, wait, this is a pretty funny story. So in the process of buying the house, because we got tired of sifting through Zillow, we taught Wanda's little sister, Chelsea, how to do a discounted cash flow with a calculator and list everything in a spreadsheet for us to determine what was worth looking into. So she was like diligently spending her time to earn 25 cents a listing.
We gave her a quarter a listing, so she was spending all her hours on that.
It's kind of funny. It's like the flag story, except this time around we're paying someone else.
It's like just slightly better than the flag, system.
You got to account for inflation. Like 20 years ago, 10 cents is probably the same as 25 cents now.
Oh my gosh, you guys relied on family child labor.
Please don't repeat that anywhere else.
But Chelsea is going to be like a real estate mogul someday.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking it's so funny. I wonder how much she realized what she's doing, except for just like, rather than just getting that quarter. But she definitely has a very weird sense of money now, as she's seen so many houses, which like usually elementary school kid isn't exposed to.
Yes.
Well, it goes to show that an 11-year-old is extremely capable.
Yeah.
So
yeah, honestly,
kudos to your sister.
Andy, the way that Chelsea was navigating Google and Google Sheets was incredible. Like she was clicking so quickly. She knew exactly what to search for. I was fascinated.
She also learned so fast at that age. It's really cool.
Imagine what you could do if you had a whole, team of Chelseas.
Oh, man.
We're not going to go there.
No, not today.
I'm super impressed by your negotiating skills. What is the environment like? Is it a buyer's market there?
So right now, I definitely still think it's a seller's market.
That's what I would assume.
Yeah, there's very, very low supply, but because of the super low interest rates, there's just buyers all over the place right now. So for us on this place, we probably overpaid for it. The numbers worked out for us, but in a different market, I think we probably would have offered under the list price. But because of how crazy it's been so far, we decided to offer list, and fortunately, we were able to secure the place. This was actually the second house that we put an offer on. For the first one, we got beat out by a cash offer within like a day, and there's just like no way we were going to compete with a cash offer.
Yeah, but it just made, even though we overpaid, I think it made sense because we're overpaying every month living in SF for just rent, right? So even though we overpaid for list price here, we at least get to take away our rent costs in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I mean, it seems like that's almost a risk, right? Because your sense of pricing is accustomed to San Francisco. So you had to like recalibrate as you were looking outside and further away.
What I realized is San Francisco has skewed my pricing so much, and there is no reason people should be paying $500,000 in San Francisco for a 400 square foot apartment. Like, it blows my mind.
Imagine if you were traveling like further and further inward towards the center of the country. Your dollar will even go further.
Oh, man.
So in your view, how many sources of income do you want, and how diverse do you want that to be?
I think we're looking to be pretty diverse with these different income streams. I think we don't want to be dependent on, say, just Airbnb itself in case there's any issues with the platform, in case we have other things impacting travel. So ideally, it would be in pretty separate industries so we can weather any kinds of recessions. I don't know why laundromats keep getting brought up, but they're very recession proof. So, if in like 5 years from now, Andy, you hear that Wanda and I bought a laundromat, don't be surprised.
Yeah, car washes too, I think.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good one.
And they're more and more automated, so you don't even need that many people working there. As long as you can, if you have the capital to set it up, then it's like people just come drive their car through and you just have like one person there collecting money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or in the future, self-driving cars. The cars just drive themselves through.
Yes. I mean, the car factories are all robots now. So same thing. You could have a robotic car wash. I like asking all the Inspired Money guests, how do you guys define success?
Yeah. I think success, at least to me, is having like a well-balanced life. So not over-indexing on, say, career or family or watching sports in my case. I think it's all about making sure that you have all the different dimensions of your life and values that matter to you a lot balanced out very well. So in this case right now, I think I'm not quite at what I would deem to be success because I would want to be able to focus more time in on family. So hopefully with 30K by 30, I can get that right balance.
I think we're currently successful in our mentality, which I think is super important. Just having the right mentality there. And I think just us being able to inspire each other and just go through and follow through with the plan is amazing. So I think we have been successful in our own books in terms of we're trying.
True.
You're definitely on your journey. Here's my last question. The 30K by 30 journey. Do you plan to keep your day jobs over the course of the 10 years so that you can keep building your portfolio of different revenue streams? Or do you reach a point before year 10 where you quit your day jobs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I think the goal is not necessarily to quit working or to quit our jobs. The goal is more to just be able to decouple money from our time. So if at some point we find like, hey, our jobs, we don't think they're creating the impact on the world that we would like, then I could see us leaving. But that being said, I don't think that'll be like a driving factor for us to leave our jobs. I think one big thing I've seen is having a W-2 is still super critical, especially if you want to get into this real estate realm. Like you're going to need to have at least 2 years on paper of income. So I hear a lot about people just saying like, hey, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go become like a YouTuber. I would advise against that very much so. If you can do YouTube in addition to your job, that I think would be the best case scenario.
Yeah. And I think now, like we were mentioning how we worked so hard to get the house together, even though hours-wise was long and we got exhausted and burnt out in certain moments, it was still not as tiring as if we didn't have the passion for it. So I think it's totally fine to go. We would keep our jobs if we think it was making a difference and do passion, smaller projects on the side that can help us for our future.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your story, Eric and Wanda. It's a really exciting journey, and I look forward to following your Instagram account so that I can see pictures and the different things that you guys are up to. Besides IG, where can the Inspired Money listener find you, or is that where they should go?
So for now, the IG is the best place to go, but I'm happy to link our Airbnb listing as well in case you want to come and actually meet us in person. Maybe it'll be better post-COVID, but that'll probably be the best way to reach us. So on the IG. That's it, Andy. Do you mind if I add one final thought? Not
at all. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, for us at least, this journey has been super inspiring, and just like taking the first step to actually like try, I think was the hardest thing to do. Because I think we were just so scared, like, hey, like what if this totally fails? What if this totally bombs? But once we're able to like get some momentum going, it feels like now like we can accomplish what we actually want to do in 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. So if any listener out there just wants to reach out to us, we're like two pretty casual, pretty normal 20-year-olds right now, just trying to figure out what life's all about. So definitely reach out on Instagram, or we can also leave our LinkedIns as well.
And what's our handle?
Oh, right. And our handle is 30K by 30 Journey.
Great. And I'll put the link to the Airbnb in the show notes too. And you guys are normal and laid back, as normal as you can be for doing life planning retreats.
Got us there.
But look at the result. There are great lessons for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's super fun. Thank you.
So what was your favorite inspired money moment? Life planning. I'm super impressed with Eric and Wanda's effort to sit down for a weekend to plot out what they want their lives to look like in 10 years. I think that's hard and it takes vision. I'm even more impressed that their actions speak as loudly as their words. In just 2 months from their retreat, they bought and redesigned a house and they moved. I love the idea of 30K by 30, and I really see the value of sitting down to make a life plan, a 10-year life plan, no matter how old you are. If you had a different favorite inspired money moment, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll give you a shout out here on the podcast. I'll also mail you an inspired money sticker or button. If you want to challenge yourself to do one thing that scares you every day, sign up for the free Inspired Money Fear Challenge at inspiredmoney.fm/challenge. This episode of Inspired Money was edited by Christopher Wright of Wright Media. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now. What are you waiting for? You don't want to miss next week's show. I'll see you then. The music you're listening to right now and all other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Kimo West. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.